Hi everybody, Randy Wong here again. Today we're going to speak about Charles Fitzsimons. Charles Fitzsimons was a very prolific and successful TV and motion picture producer. He was the younger brother of screen legend Maureen O'Hara, who was a major actress in the 1940s and 1950s and up until the 1960s. So he came from a family that was rooted in the motion picture industry. In 1994, J.R. Goodman, my friend and partner at the time, arranged for us to sit down and have lunch with Fitzsimons. Charles Fitzsimons' significance to Bruce Lee is that Fitzsimons was the assistant to William Dozier. William Dozier was the producer of the Green Hornet television series that ran from 1966 to 1967 and starred Van Williams as the Green Hornet and Bruce Lee as Kato. When Charles Fitzsimons sat down with us, he said that he had extraordinary memories of Bruce Lee. He said that he and Bruce were very close and that Bruce would take Chinese food over to his house and they want to sit down and have a family-style dinner with him and his kids. So in the short time that they worked together, which was only a year, they became close friends. Fitzsimons said to us that Dozier had cast everyone on the Green Hornet television show. Van Williams as obviously Britt Reed, Bruce Lee as Kato obviously, and then of course Wendy Wagner as Britt Reed's secretary, Miss Case. Fitzsimons said to J.R. Goodman and myself that he and Dozier knew that Bruce Lee was fast, but they really didn't know quite how fast he truly was, because when they cast Bruce Lee, or when Dozier cast Bruce Lee, they had him come in for that famous screen test that has been on the internet for decades now. But that screen test shows Bruce Lee demonstrating his movements, and you get a glimpse of the incredible speed that he possessed. At the same time, that screen test revealed his, charismatic, magnetic personality on screen. He just basically was, he had this magnetism that came across. And so when he became Kato, and they started filming, so as he's in character and he's got his Kato garb on and everything else, they're shooting him and he's going up against the bad guys, and obviously Kato takes them out. When the film crew and directors will view the dailies, the raw footage at the end of the day, they realized that they had a problem, because the film would, on film you would see Bruce Lee standing there, the bad guys would come towards him, and all of a sudden there would be a blur. This is on film, because the motion picture cameras back in 1966 could not capture him. He wouldn't register on film the way he was moving. So when the camera crew went to Fitzsimons, they said, "Hey, what are we going to do about this?" So Fitzsimons went to Bruce Lee and said to Bruce, "You're going to have to pull back. You're going to have to hold back and slow yourself down. Otherwise, the film is not going to capture you. In order to meet the requirements of the movie camera, you're going to have to slow yourself down." Now, that's what Bruce Lee did. But, it's just an incredible story. Fitzsimons told us that what we're all seeing on the Green Hornet television series, what you're seeing on the final cut, is a slowed down version of Bruce Lee. And then he let out a huge laugh and said, "It's unbelievable, but it's true." Fitzsimons then went on to say that Bruce Lee was more than just a martial arts master, that Bruce Lee could have been one of the greatest ballet masters in the world. Fitzsimons says that Bruce Lee's movements were so fluid, his coordination and his body control was so fantastic. He said Bruce Lee was a small man. I mean, 5'5", 5'6" at best. But he said that if you walked up to Bruce and grabbed his arm and reached out and took his arm, that his arm was like steel. It wasn't flesh, it was like steel, because your fingers would not dent in. So, absolutely amazing. Fitzsimons summed it up as Bruce Lee was a combination of a martial arts master, a ballet master, and a man of steel. Those were the words he used. He said Bruce Lee was a man of steel. Fitzsimons said that when the Green Hornet was canceled, Bruce Lee came to him because Bruce trusted him and they had become such close friends. Bruce Lee came to him and said to Fitzsimons, "I need your advice. I want you to be completely honest with me." He said, Bruce said, "Should I give up the motion picture business? He said, am I fooling myself? Should I find something else to do to make a living?" And Fitzsimons looked at him and said, "No, Bruce, stay with it. Do not give up. You are destined for something great, something special." And Bruce said, "Yeah, but I've got to eat, I've got to live, I've got a family to feed." So Fitzsimons thought and said, "Okay, Bruce, here's what I want you to do. I want you to teach. I want you to teach Kung Fu." And Bruce responded, "Yes, but I don't have the money to open up a gym or open up a commercial school. I mean, that takes money to start a business. I haven't got that right now." Fitzsimons says, "No, that's not what I want you to do." Fitzsimons said, "In Hollywood, half the movie stars, half the Hollywood elites, half of them have dreams of being macho. So here's what I want you to do, Bruce. I want you to," and then that's when Fitzsimons grabbed a piece of paper and a pen, and he said, "I want you to have business cards made up. On the front of the card, I want you to write Bruce Lee, Master of Kung Fu, or whatever it is you want to say, and then write below that, private consultations, $1,000. And I want you to go and get a Beverly Hills P.O. box so that you have a Beverly Hills address, and put that as your address on the business card. On the back of the business card, I want you to write 5 lessons, 5 half-an-hour lessons for $600. 10 half-hour session lessons for $1,000. And then he said, I want you to have these made up. I want you to have these printed. And Bruce looked at him and said, "You're out of your cotton-picking mind. Oh, no one's going to pay that. I mean, this is not going to work." Keep in mind that back in 1967, $1,000 was the equivalent of over $8,000 in today's money. So when Charles Fitzsimons was instructing Bruce on how much to charge and to put this on his business card, Bruce thought he was insane. Anyway, so Fitzsimons said to Bruce, "Bruce, listen, trust me. If you get the right clients and they start talking about you and spreading the news, this is going to work." So he told Bruce, "I want you to get the business cards made up, and I want you to take them to your friend, Jay Sebring." Now, Jay Sebring back then was the hairstylist to the stars. He was the famous stylist that was cutting all of Hollywood's elite. So Bruce, even though he thought Fitzsimons was nuts, he went ahead and did it anyway. So he went to Jay Sebring and said, "Jay, can you do me a big favor? Can you please pass this out to your clients? This is my new business card." And Jay agreed. and and it worked. This is how Bruce connected with people like Sterling Silliphant, and who became his student, and how he got James Coburn as his student, and then Steve McQueen. I mean, this is how it all started. And this new venture that Fitzsimons basically turned Bruce onto allowed Bruce to survive, allowed Bruce to basically survive after the Green Hornet was canceled. And the rest is history. When I say the rest is history, what I mean is that from this private consultation business that Fitzsimons suggested to Bruce, and it did take off. I mean, more incredibly than Bruce and Fitzsimons had anticipated, but it did take off, and it was Sterling Silliphant who was the writer of who wrote Marlowe, and wrote a role for Bruce in the film Marlowe. And it was Sterling Silliphant who was the producer and writer of Longstreet, in which Bruce then became a character that appeared several times in episodes that are even to this day just still classic and unbelievably well done. So this allowed Bruce to survive after Green Hornet was canceled, and then it allowed him to prosper until he got to Hong Kong, where he met his life's destiny. So great story. This, as far as I know, this has never been published anywhere, the story of Fitzsimons and Bruce, but it's just one of the great stories in Bruce Lee's history. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you again on the next one. Thank you.